Welcome to Something to Talk About.
Hi, welcome to Something to Talk About. My name is Taco, and I'm here for one of those A Song of Ice and Fire remakes, which means it must be Tuesday. On a Tuesday. Get some tacos, ladies and gentlemen. After you're done listening to Taco, if you don't know what's going on here, this is what's going on. So, I don't know what I'm possibly spoiling besides, I don't think I'm spoiling the show at all, but yeah, definitely the books, if the books is Fire and Blood, Volume 1. Spoiler in that. Actually, no, I fibbed. World of Ice and Fire. This guy takes place after that. I mean, I'm supposed to be the guy you go to for lore, and the first fact I drop is wrong. Click like, subscribe. Let's go. Yeah, we're talking Aemon the Dragonknight Targaryen again, the Knight of Tears and the commander of the Kingsguard. This is going to be fun. I covered this guy back in the day, so this is my remake for him, and this is definitely going to be a long video. I covered him back when I didn't really talk too much. That's not true. I always talked a lot, but I skipped over a lot of facts, and I didn't find context and try to build around things, and yeah, it's going to be a lot longer. So let's just get into it. Let's just jump into it. Am I allowed to say that without Philip DeFranco suing me? The Dragonknight, Prince Aemon Targaryen, also known as the Dragonknight, was the second son of King Viserys II and his wife, Lady Larra Rogare. Prince Aemon has been referred to as the noblest knight to ever have lived. He and his skill with the sword is legendary throughout the Seven Kingdoms. Even over 100 years after his death, he is a popular figure among the highborn and small folk in songs and stories and fables. Yeah, he literally, like, it's weird when they talk about legendary knights. He gets brought up like with like the knights of like the Age of Heroes, right? When people are like, oh, the Mirror Shield guy or the Simeon Star Eyes or Aegon Dragon or Aemon Dragonknight, like, but he wasn't like a dude from the Legends, right? He was like an hour ago, 100 years ago, right? So yeah, so he proved be the greatest jouster and swordsman of his age, a knight worthy to bear Dark Sister, so that's the smaller of the Valyrian steel swords from House Targaryen. He became known as the Dragonknight for his three-headed dragon crest wrought on his white gold, wrought in white gold upon his helmet. Yeah, it's not in this picture. I think I got it. Maybe I got it at least one of the pictures coming up. But yeah, he had like 3 dragons on his head. So as an infant, Aemon was large, lusty, and strong, and just as beautiful as his bigger brother Aegon was. But though he looked like his older brother, he did not share his faults. Aemon possessed piety, making him more like his younger sister Nerys than his older brother Aegon. He became a great jouster and swordsman later in life, and it said that Aemon considered Cregan Stark. Yeah, he fought Cregan Stark to have been the best swordsman he ever faced. He is considered by some to have been the noblest knight to ever have lived. I think I said that twice. Yeah, we don't really know in what context he fought Cregan Stark. It's just something that we know about him, that he did do it, but we don't know if it was friendly, if it was not friendly. I'm assuming it was friendly. We didn't hear of any wars with the North during Aemon's time, but we'll find out when we finally get the Fire and Blood Volume 2, which I think they're going to call Blood and Fire. Anyways, House Targaryen. I like to cover houses here, especially when they're really small, unknown houses, right? Like House Bushy or House Brightstone or House Skane or House Targaryen. Oh, that made it funny. House Targaryen of King's Landing is a noble family of Valyrian descent who once ruled the 7 kingdoms of Westeros. The Targaryen sigil is a red 3-headed dragon, breathing red flames on black. The house words are fire and blood. The only family of dragon lords to have survived the doom of Valyria. The Targaryens left of Valyrian freehold 12 years before the doom. They resided for more than a century at Dragonstone until Aegon the Conqueror and his sister wives, Visenya and Rhaenys, began the First War of Conquest in 2 BC. During Aegon's conquest, the family built the Aegon Fort in the new capital, King's Landing. The Aegon Fort was later torn down and replaced by the Red Keep, which remained their main seat for the duration of their dynasty, and which housed the Iron Throne. So yeah, it's like that big throne everyone always talks about. House Targaryen ruled as king of the Andals, the Royner, and the First Men, and lords of the Seven Kingdom, and the great house of the Crownlands for nearly 300 years. I hope I didn't inform anybody anything there. I hope you guys know all that. It's House Targaryen. All right, so sibling love. We're just gonna jump right into some. There's gonna be a lot of incest, guys. I'm sorry. It's Targaryens, but gonna be a lot of brother sister love going on in this one. Oh my god! All right, Aemon was born to Prince Viserys Targaryen and Lady Larra Rogare on the eve of Smith's Day in 136 AC. A dragon's egg was placed in the cradle, and all rejoiced at his birth, except his older brother, who was found by their mother hitting newborn Aemon with said dragon egg. Oh my god, the last of Viserys' children was his daughter Nerys, who was born on 138 AC, or in 138 AC. Yeah, so Aegon sneaks in there, and he's like 2 or something, and he grabs a dragon egg, which is essentially a stone, right? And just starts hitting his infant brother with it. If you don't immediately like, all right, like we just had the Dance of Dragons like a minute ago. And immediately we're like, hey, let's see if we can get some dragons hatching. I think there was still a dragon around. I don't think they were completely gone at this point. Let's give them a dragon egg. Why is a Targaryen beating another Targaryen? Maybe this means that maybe we have another civil. Like that doesn't scare you. Like you just went through some Targaryen civil war. All right. Anyways, there you go. Symbolism. That's all I'm getting at. Aemon was inseparable. Why was I saying ear? Inseparable from his sister Nerys when they were young. She loved Aemon best of her brothers, but for he knew how to make her laugh, and he had something of the same piety that she possessed. Well, Aegon did not. Aegon was a bit of a jerk. Yeah, I don't want to go out on a limb here, but Aegon the Unworthy, bit of a jerk. All right. Where was I at? And yeah, she loved the Seven as dearly as she loved her own brother, the one that she likes, not the other one, if not more. And it might have been a septa if her lord father allowed it. But Viserys instead wed her to his son Aegon in 153 with King Aegon III's blessing, right? So yeah, King Aegon III was still king here, and his younger brother, who was handed the king for him, Viserys, who is Aemon's dad, married Aegon the Unworthy, so Aegon IV, with Nerys, right? Stories speak of Aemon's doomed love for his sister, and Aemon and Nerys supposedly loved each other. According to singers, both Aemon and Nerys cried on Nerys' when the day that she was married to her brother Aegon in 153 AC, although historians report that Nerys had only cried during the bedding. I don't like that. Well, Aemon had quarreled with Aegon at the wedding feast. Shortly after the wedding, Aemon joined the Kingsguard, taking his vows at the age of 17 during the reign of his uncle, King Aemon, or Aegon III Targaryen. So there's going to be a couple Darrens, there's going to be a couple Aegons, which there already is, and then there isn't going to be any Aegons, just Aegons, and I think just the one Aemon. Yeah. No, actually, I do mention a different Aemon later on. Okay, so sorry, it's Targaryens. They only stuck with a couple names, right? So let's talk about the conquest of Dorne. So the first Darren I'm talking about, Darren the First, is the young dragon, which is Aemon or Aegon the Third's son, who, yeah, is about to become king. I'm going to talk about a different Darren later. All right, let's go. After His uncle Aegon III died. His war-hungry, Aemon's war-hungry cousin Daeron I took over and immediately invaded Dorne. So Viserys and the other counselors, right, objected to young king's plans, however, reminding Daeron that Aegon the Conqueror and his sisters have failed twice in trying to conquer Dorne with his dragons, and that they now that had none. Like, we don't even have any dragons. So Daeron famously replied, "You have a dragon. He stands before you." He's like 14 or something. He takes the throne too. So Aemon took part in this invasion of Dorne, led by his cousin King Daeron. So this is the first Daeron we're talking about, Daeron the First, and yeah, the young dragon, right? The conquest starts off very well for the Targaryen king. After several battles, the Prince of Dorne and 2 Dornish lords bend the knee in the submission of Sunspear in 158 AC. Daeron was named the first Targaryen king to conquer Dorne. Daeron spent some time in Dorne to conciliate his conquest and eliminate rebels. An assassination attempt on the king was prevented by the actions of Aemon the Dragonknight, who threw himself in the path of a poisoned arrow. Ooh, meant for Daemon. Oh, that's gotta hurt. Aemon the Dragonknight survived the poison. However, he was sent back to King's Landing to recover, leaving, and then they leave Lord Tyrell in charge of Dorne. Yeah, I think so Daeron. Oh my God. See, I'm just jumbling myself here. Daeron returned to the capital in 159 AC, bringing 14 Dornish nobles with him as hostages. Although the Dornish nobility had submitted, some small folk continued to resist. Lord Lionel Tyrell, like I said, so it was this Tyrell who was left in charge of Dorne, attempted to stamp out rebellion, and 40 or 50,000 men who have died in the next 3 years. Oh, wow. A clever trap at Sandstone killed Lionel and sparked a great uprising, however, leading Daeron to return to Dorne in 160. You guys catch all that? Me stumbling didn't help anything, but yeah, in like 158, Daeron becomes king, goes into Dorne, conquers it really quick, and then Aemon gets hit with a poison arrow and gets returned back to King's Landing. And then eventually Daeron also goes back to King's Landing, but then Tyrell gets killed, and then they're all headed back to Dorne, right? Whew. Pit of Vipers. Upon his recovery, Aemon returned to Dorne to protect his king, and he won great fame by defeating a Dornish champion. We don't know anything about this Dornish champion, but we know he defeated him. A rebellion in Dorne undid Daeron's conquest. However, Aemon was with Daeron when he met his apparently broken Dornishmen under a peace banner in 161 AC, together with 4 other knights of the Kingsguard. 3 of those Kingsguard died defending Daemon, and 1 shamefully yielded. Aemon was captured after slaying 2 of the betrayers. The young dragon himself died with black fire in his hand, surrounded by a dozen enemies. Lord of Will, no, not that Will of Will. All right, that name was so dumb they did it twice, right? Eventually put Aemon naked in a crow's cage placed above a pit filled with vipers. So yeah, they head back. They're trying to do a war. Eventually, they fail, right? And then Daeron is now dead, and he gets captured. Aemon the Dragonknight gets captured by Will of Will, not the one I already made a remake for. Put him in a crow's cage above a bunch of snakes. Okay. Baelor the Snake Charmer. There are many songs of Baelor's journey to Dorne. Wait, did I jump ahead? I jumped ahead. The young dragon had never been married, therefore never fathered any children. Accordingly, upon his death, the Iron Throne passed to his brother Baelor, a youth of 10 and 7. So, yeah. His first act as king was to grant pardons to the Dornish hostages, even though his lords of the council cried for vengeance, right? Like, that's the whole point of having Dornish hostages. And then when Dorne, like, rose again, you think they would have killed the hostages, right? And then after Daeron died, you think they would have killed the hostages. But that's not Baelor's style, right? They call him Baelor the Blessed, Baelor the Beloved, Baelor the Butthole. I'm not a big fan of Baelor. But this is like the one thing that Baelor did that I actually liked. All right, so Baelor publicly forgave his brother's killers and declared that he meant to bind up the wounds of his brother's war and make peace with Dorne. As an act of piety, he declared that he would go to Dorne with neither sword nor army to return their hostages and sue for peace. And so he did, walking barefoot from King's Landing to Sunspear, clad in only a sackcloth, while the hostages rode fine horses behind him. So he is walking through the desert, right? Follow me into the desert, right? And he's not wearing anything. He's just wearing a cloth. He's barefoot, but he gave the hostages horses. So yeah, that's this guy's style, right? That's what I'm saying. This is how he rolls. There are many songs about Baelor's journey. Now we're finally back to here to Dorne. That found their way to the tongues of singers. Mounting the stone way, Baelor soon came to the place where the Wills have imprisoned his cousin Aemon, the guy who we're talking about here. He found the Dragonknight naked in a cage. It is said that Baelor pleaded, but Lord Will refused to free Aemon, right? So he's like, hey, you got to free my cousin. And Lord Will's like, no, I'm not doing that. Yeah. Forcing his grace to instead offer a prayer for his cousin and swear that he would return. Many generations since have wondered just what Prince Aemon must have thought seeing his ready-voiced, slender king, haggard with bare, bleeding feet, making this promise. Yeah, you must have thought he would never return, right? So think. He probably doesn't know anything what's going on. He got put in a cage, right? He sees his king die. He gets put in a cage above snakes. I'm assuming he gets fed a little bit or else he would have died by now. But yeah, he's naked in a cage. And like at least weeks go by as Baelor walks through the desert, right? And then he had the Dornish hostages with him, right? And then he shows up all messed up. His feet are all messed up. He doesn't look great. And he's like, hey. And Aemon must have been like, Baelor, what's going on? And then he's like, don't worry about it. I'll come back. I'm sure if you were Aemon or if I was, we'd all think, he ain't coming back. Like, that's madness, right? This is madness. It's Cake Town. All right. So Baelor Targaryen made peace with Prince Dorne, and on his return trip for Sunspear, Baelor tried to free his cousin. Yeah, he made it back, and he did. House Will was told to release Aemon into Baelor's custody, but instead they gave Baelor the key to the cage and an invitation to use it. Yeah, so he's still up above these snakes, and he goes, "Can you free my cousin, please?" And they're like, "Sure. Here's the key." Deuces. That's what they did. They said deuces. The Dragonknight, fearing that for his cousin's safety, begged Baelor to leave him. Baelor refused and walked into the pit. Singers say the snakes bowed their heads and refused to bite Baelor due to the protection of the gods. Yeah, that's not true. However, some maesters believe Baelor was bitten 6 times before reaching Aemon's cage. Well, the Dornishmen claim the king was bitten 100 times before using the key. Woo! Ouch. The freed Aemon carried Baelor upon his back while the Dornishmen made bets on how long they'd last. Yeah, I'd probably make similar bets because you got Aemon who has been starved and emaciated, right? He's all sick and probably hasn't eaten much. and he's naked, and now he's carrying the king who's just wearing like a sack, right? And he's like, all right, guys, we're going to head down the desert. And they're like, well, they're all dead. Like, there's no way they're going to make that. You think so, huh? Yeah. All right, so the Venom put Baelor in a coma. Yeah, many kings. So apparently they made it. The Venom put Baelor in a coma, so Aemon carried him to carried the comatose king north, a septon in a village located in the Boneway, the Red Mountain, so not too far. Gave Aemon clothing and a donkey to carry Baelor. So, you know, this, if you came across this, you must have think this is a bad predicament, right? Because he's just on a donkey, no weapons, no armor. He's wearing clothes. This guy's wearing clothes, but no one looks like they got too much going on and they're just riding a donkey. And he'd be like, what happened? But you wouldn't have guessed that their predicament just was way worse, right? Okay. So the cousins arrive in Blackhaven, where the castle's maesters treated Baelor. The king immediately awoke upon the journey to Storm's End. Eventually, sorry, not immediately. So he didn't wake up again until they made it to Storm's End. It was half a year or more before he was well enough to travel all the way to King's Landing, though. And in that time, Prince Viserys, right, who is Aegon III's brother, right? So this would have been Baelor's uncle and Aemon the Dragonknight's daddy, right? He managed the realm as the king's hand, maintaining Baelor's peace treaty with the Dornish. So Aemon then went on, so they finally made it back, right? So Aemon went on to serve at Baelor throughout his reign until Baelor's death in 171 due to starving himself during a fast. Yeah, you can watch my Dana the Defiant Targaryen video if you want more about Baelor. I've never straight up covered Baelor. It's kind of too big of a character. Maybe I will one day, but yeah. Yeah. Where was I? Aemon's elder brother. Where was I? Aemon served during the brief reign of his father. Yeah, his father only reigned for 1 year as King Viserys II Targaryen. So he took over after Baelor's death from fasting. And then, much to everyone's chagrin, Aemon the Dragonknight's elder brother, King Aegon IV, succeeded his father, Viserys II. During Aegon's reign, Aemon remained a Lord Commander of the Kingsguard because that's how it works, right? Though they freaking hated each other. Aegon was an awful king and treated his wife, both Aemon and Aegon's sister, Nerys, very badly. It was said that Aegon said of Aegon that he never slept alone and did not count a night complete until he had spent himself with a woman. In his last years, Aegon claimed that he had slept with at least 900 women. Jeez. But only had loved 9 of them. That's his 9 paramours, his 9 mistresses. And Queen Nerys was not counted among them. Yeah, his sister wife and him. I didn't want to get too much into it because this wasn't like an Aegon video or a Nerys video. But yeah, Aegon had 9 mistresses, 9 girls who he's loved out of his 900, and none of them were Nerys. And I kind of left out the story of when she gave him a child, which is Darren, a different Darren, not the Dragonknight, different Darren, which we'll get to. She gave birth to an heir, and she's like, can we just stop now? Like, I gave you an heir. Can we just live as brother and sister? But Aegon's a freaking Targaryen, and he's like, well, that's what we're doing. We're living as brother and sister. Because, yeah, that's how the Targaryens' siblings worked. They were in extremely unhappy marriages. Yay. Okay. Yeah, I'm sure some of them had decent ones, but I don't know, man. Even Alicent and Jaehaerys fought multiple times, right? So, all right. Family squabbles. All right. Matters between them were inflamed further by Prince Aemon, their brother, right, who had been inseparable from Nerys. So Aemon the Dragonknight, yeah, I'm saying matters between Aegon and Nerys were inflamed even worse because of Aemon, like, pretty much being in love with Nerys. So from Nerys when they were young. Yeah, they've been inseparable. Sorry. Oh, God, I'm so jumbled. Aegon's resentment of his noble, celebrated brother was plain to all. For the king delighted, slighting Aemon and Nerys both at every turn. The king's quarrels with close kin became all the worse after his son Darren grew old enough to voice his own opinions, right? So it's funny because Aegon the Unworthy constantly quarreled with his brother and his sister. So his Lord Commander of the Kingsguard and his own wife. They constantly fought. And it stayed like that until his own son became old enough to have opinions of his own. And then he fought with his own son too. So yeah, that's why I named this one Family Squabbles. Yeah. So Nerys was accused of adultery and treason by Sir Morgul Hastewick. Prince Aemon defended his sister's honor in trial by combat and slew Morgul. This inspired many songs and further Aemon's renown, much to the king's annoyance. Yeah, he just like totally killed good old Morgul Hastewick, and Aegon was like, dang it. So rumors remained about Aemon being the actual father of Aegon's son and heir, Prince Darren. Right, so there's a lot of people, and I'll talk about it later. A lot of people think that Aemon the Dragonknight, since he's in love with his sister as well, Nerys, well, not as well, he's the only one who loved Nerys because Aegon didn't, is actually King Darren's, soon to be King Darren's real father, right? Which would make Darren a bastard. We're going to cover all that later, but that's what a lot of people think. This caused several people to look at one of Aegon's other bastards, Daemon Blackfyre, as the new heir to the throne. That's probably why Aegon gave him the sword Blackfyre, right? The truth of these rumors have never been proven or disproven, but according to the writings of Maester Caith in Lives of Four Kings, Aegon IV secretly started the rumors of Nerys' adultery and used Morgul to instigate the tale, though at the time Aegon denied this. These accusations coincidentally started around when Aegon and Prince Darren were quarreling, right? Darren opposed Aegon's plan for an unprovoked war on Dorne, yeah, and the prince, being Aemon's son, would have given King Aegon a legitimate reason to set aside his heir in favor of his bastard, Daemon. What did I just say? Well, around this time, Aegon was thinking about invading Dorne again. So Darren, his son, is like, no, we shouldn't do that. So Aegon then is like, hey, Morgul Hastewick, did you know my brother is actually my son's real dad? Isn't that weird? So he's, during this fight is when this rumor starts up, right? But of course, you forget that the other side has Aemon the Dragonknight. So when Morgul's like, hey, you guys hear that Aemon's the real dad? Aemon's like, cool, trial by combat. What? So yeah, that shut him up. And yeah, of course it annoyed Aegon. But yeah, Aegon's, at least according to this maester, is the one who actually put all this in motion to try to, for one, kind of get rid of, like, shame Aemon, but also to, like, completely disinherit Daemon. Or Darren. Sorry, these names. Darren. So, yeah, we're getting there, guys. Night of Tears. After the birth of Daenerys' stillborn son, Queen Nerys Targaryen was near death. Aegon's hand of the king, Lord Bracken, hoped the king would marry his daughter, Barba, the mother of Aegon's bastard, Aegor Rivers, if the queen had died. Nerys recovered, however, and Prince Darren and the Dragonknight, Aemon, forced Barba to leave with infant Aegor to Stonehenge. Wow. In contrast to Barba and Aegon's next mistress, Melissa Blackwood, was befriended by Aemon, Darren, and Nerys. Yeah, and I love that this art that I found is straight up what this is. And it's Nerys being friends with her brother husband's mistress, Melissa Blackwood. And you actually see Aemon the Dragonknight hanging out with a little itty bitty blood raven, right? And yeah, Darren just like watches it all. So they kind of become, all these guys kind of become really close at court, right? So now we're going to move on to the Prince of Tears, or the Knight of Tears. Disguised as a mystery knight, Prince Aemon once won a tourney after his brother Aegon had forbidden him to take place because Aegon wanted to crown his mistress at the time the Queen of Love and Beauty. But after winning as the, quote, Knight of Tears, Aemon crowned Nerys as Queen of Love and Beauty instead. Yeah, there's a lot of songs about that. So now, Terence Toyne was found abed with King Aegon the Unworthy's mistress, Bethany Bracken, right? So she took over after Melissa Blackwood. Even though they proclaimed their love, Aegon had them executed. So let's kind of cover this really quick. So I feel really bad about Bethany Bracken. So Barba, I hate the name Barba. I wasn't going to say Barbara, but Barba Bracken was, did I say Bethany, right? Was Bethany's, older sister. So after Barba fell out of favor for Melissa Blackwood, they as in Barba and her dad, like kind of groomed Bethany to be the next mistress for Aegon. They like taught her what he was into and what all this stuff, and pretty much groomed her, and then sent her to King's Landing. And of course, Aegon the Unworthy then is like, ooh, younger, new, improved Bracken, right? And then it takes her as a mistress. But he's so awful, and she hates being with him. And I feel so bad for Bethany here because he's just disgusting and he's mean and he's awful. And I bet being his mistress was no freaking cakewalk. So she then searches for love somewhere else, and she falls in love with Terence Toyne. Sure, Terence should have thought about this, but yeah, so they fall in love, and let's see how it goes. So Terence Toyne, yeah, they're found a bed, right, like I said, and even though they were in love, he had them both executed. But Terence was dismembered piece by piece while he forced Bethany to watch, before meeting her own death. So then Sir Terence's brothers attempt to avenge him by killing King Aegon. And I totally think they're in the right here. He totally went too far. And this is all because he's a piece of crap, right? But they were stopped by Prince Aemon the Dragonknight, because he's a Kingsguard member, who then died defending him. Queen Nerys graved Aemon's death and died in childbirth a year later. So is that not one of the most tragic things you've ever heard, right? So Aemon hated his brother Aegon, and Aegon's doing all this horrible stuff and treats Bethany Bracken so awful that she then runs to the hands of Terence Toyne, and then he has Terence Toyne torn to pieces, and his brothers, who are like, whoa, try to rush Aegon, and Aemon dies defending him. And not only that, but then Nerys dies a year later in childbirth. So that means that after all of this, she still had to be in bed with Aegon and get pregnant again just to die in childbirth. It's about the most tragic. It's so freaking sad. Like, Aegon's just the worst. I hate Aegon the Unworthy. I mean, I don't think, like I said, I don't want to go out on a limb, but I think he's a bit of a jerk. All right. So I got two more slides, so now we're just going to talk about his legacy moving forward, right? So King Aegon did little to honor the Dragon Knight's memory. Aegon began to make barely veiled references to his son Darren's alleged illegitimacy, right? Something he had only dared to do when both Nerys and Aemon were dead, but now he can openly, because he still feared his brother, even though his brother's there to protect him. Now that Nerys and Aemon are dead, he can just say, like, hey, Darren, not my son, right? He can now make comments about it, right? Aegon's attempts to blacken his brother's name also failed, as Aemon is remembered as a heroic figure on par with legends of Age of Heroes, and his memory greatly respected throughout Westeros. Well, the king is, posthumously dubbed as Aegon the Unworthy. So even though he tried to talk smack about the Dragonknight after the Dragonknight died, it didn't matter. Everyone knows Aemon the Dragonknight's awesome. Aegon the Unworthy sucks, right? No matter what he tried. So now it's, like I said, we're going to talk about his legacy some more. Daemon II, so possibly Aemon's nephew or son, right? According to rumors, named his grandson Maester Aemon Targaryen, right? Maester Aemon, in honor of the Dragonknight. I do find this comment funny because, that's how we got Maester Aemon, and he's named after Aemon the Dragonknight, right? You guys know Maester Aemon up at the wall. But that it says that he named his grandson. You get to name your grandson. Maybe if you're a king, you get to name your grandson. But my dad didn't get to name any of my kids. Normally it's the mom and dad that get to name a kid. But maybe they're like, hey, Grandpa Darren, what do you think? He's like, what about Aemon? All right. Yeah. Anyways, Aemon once told Jon Snow, my grandfather named me for Prince Aemon the Dragonknight, who was his uncle or his father, depending on which tale you believe. Aemon, he called me. Targaryens. Tyrion Lannister uses Aemon as a comparison when describing the fame of Barristan Selmy among the small folk. Yeah, Barristan Selmy is about as loved as Aemon the Dragonknight was. Jon Snow and Robb Stark would often play a game of swordplay in which they pretended to be great heroes, including Florian the Fool and Prince Aemon the Dragonknight, and King Darren the Young Dragon, and Sir Ryan Redwine. So yeah, like I said, most of those were not Age of Heroes, right? Only one guy, Florian the Fool, was actually an example from Age of Heroes. But yeah, what I'm trying to say is Aemon the Dragonknight kind of lived on as a big mythological figure, if you will. So yeah, all right, let's do some fan theories and just regular theories. So of course, the theory that Darren the Good, so Darren II's dad is Aemon. I wouldn't call Aemon being his dad a fan theory because it's brought up right in the book. Like we just covered it. It's just a theory, right? It's Aegon's theory. So I wouldn't call that a fan theory. I don't know if I believe it or not, but it is the catalyst for the entire Blackfire Rebellion, right? So if Darren was actually Aemon's bastard and not Aegon's legitimate kid, that would make Daemon Blackfire the actual heir, and Bittersteel, all you Blackfire commenters are right. So there's a lot of Blackfire fans who watch, like a lot of the fandom are pro Blackfire, and whatever floats your boat. I'm not, but that's fine. If you believe that Aemon the Dragonknight is actually Darren's father, that legitimizes the entire Blackfire Rebellion, right? So there's a lot of people who do believe that because it backs Daemon Blackfire. But yeah, surprisingly, I couldn't find any really crazy tinfoil on Aemon. I did find a cool post called "An Argument for Aemon" by Targaryen in King's Landing. I think I've covered stuff by them before, and Westeros.org. So I said video. This post used parallels between Jon Snow and Aemon the Dragonknight to justify that Jon Snow's true name will be Aemon in the book instead of Aegon in the like it was in the show. Super interesting. Yeah, I do kind of really like that because it was something I was never thinking about. Like, oh, maybe I should make this video about Jon Snow's true name. But yeah, it's pulls on the story that I just told you about Aemon the Dragonknight and combined him, or I compared him with Jon Snow. So he has a lot more similarities to Aemon than any Aegon. So maybe, like in the show, how we find out that his real name was Aegon Targaryen, maybe we'll find out that his name is Aemon Targaryen. Okay. And now if you want a much better video on Aemon, I suggest In Deep Geeks video, Aemon the Dragonknight. I'll put a link in the description. Yeah, if you want one that's less rambling and goofy schmoofy, yeah, In Deep Geeks awesome. You should go check out that video. Yeah. He's good. All right, that's all I got. This is one of my longest videos, 40 freaking minutes. Holy crap. Oh god. All right. Oh, I didn't play my thing when he dies. Maybe I respect Aemon too much. All right, I'm not gonna play Poochie's Dead. Sorry, guys. If you wanted it, I respect Aemon the Dragonknight too much. What do you guys think of Aemon the Dragonknight? Please click like and subscribe if you made it 40 minutes into me ranting. And also, if you want to watch a better video, check out In Deep Geeks Aemon Dragonknight. I'll put the link in the description. But yeah, peace.